Shalom, my friends. I'm here to talk about tzitzit. There's one in the style that I do. It's rather unusual, as I think it should be. Wearing the tzitzit to me is like, it's the same thing as wearing a wedding ring. It's an act of total devotion, and it's a statement to the world that you are absolutely dedicated solely and only to your Father in heaven, His beloved Son, and His Kodesh Spirit. And it's a statement to the world that you are here to stand up for, to speak on behalf of, and to act upon your Kodesh Father's commandments. That's what the tzitzit are all about. We see them mentioned in Mark chapter 6, verse 56, where it reads, it says, wherever he went, Yeshua, into villages or cities or the country, they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and begged him to let them touch, if only, the tzitzit of his garment. And as many as touched him were healed. In Malachi chapter 4 verse 2, it says there is healing. A lot of scriptures say in his wings, but in the original Hebrew it says there is healing in his tzitzit. There's a woman in the gospel who had an issue of blood for 12 years. She reached out and she touched his tzitzit and she was healed. It was a huge crowd, and when she touched his tzitzit, Yeshua knew it. He says, "Who touched me?" But she was healed, and she did that because she was familiar with Malachi and the fact that there was healing in his wings. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 5, we see Yeshua pointing out a bad attitude about tzitzit. He says, and they do all their works to be seen by men, and they make their tefillin wide. The tefillin is the box they wear on their forehead, and they put scriptures inside the box. There's another one on their left arm with the straps wrapped around, and there's scriptures in the box. That's the tefillin. Some Bibles say phylacteries. That is a Greek interpretation, and it's a terrible interpretation. Although in this case it might be accurate because they were just showing off. Yeshua says they make their tefillin wide and they lengthen the tzitzit of their garments. This is not... Things got so messed up. This is why you hear me talking a lot about the Western mindset versus the Hebrew mindset. It's the Western mindset that focuses on how things look. The Hebrew mindset focuses on the function of things. That's important, and that's why you never see a description of Yeshua or any of the others the way they looked, because the Hebrew mindset doesn't care how people look. It cares about what they do, what their function is. So we see Yeshua correcting them there. Then one of my favorites is in Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 8. And of course I'm reading from the HalleluYah Scriptures. I have my leather copy. Somebody was kind enough to make a donation that I would receive this copy. They're anonymous. I don't know who they are. Yahweh knows. Thank you. But Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 8 reads, It shall be in the day of the slaughter of Yahweh, the day of his wrath, that I shall punish the rulers and the sons of the sovereign and all such as are clad in foreign garments, meaning those who are not clad in the Hebrew garb with the tzitziot. Tzitzit is singular. Tzitziot is plural. But here Yahweh is saying he'll punish those who are not wearing the tzitziot, but are dressing like the rest of the world does. They're following the world instead of him. They're interested in pleasing men instead of pleasing him. That's what, wearing the tzitzit is all about. It's saying that I am Kodesh. I am dedicated to one and one only, Yahweh, my Elohim, Yahweh Yechad. Yahweh, my Elohim. Yahweh is one. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 11 and 12 tells us, do not put on a garment of different kinds of wool and linen together. Abba doesn't like things that are mixed. Verse 12 says, make tassels on the four corners of the garment with which you cover yourself. Over in Numbers 15:38, this is where we get the primary commandment about the tzitzit, where it says, speak to the children of Yisrael, and you shall say to them, to make tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations. And so first he's saying, to put these fringes on the corners, and to put a blue cord in the tzitzit of those corners. It says to put a blue cord. A lot of times you'll see tzitzit. A lot of times you'll see tzitzit, and they look more like this. It's the same wrapping sequence that I use, but there's these knots in between, and then down on the bottom you'll see two blue cords. One is longer. It's actually one cord that goes up and comes back down. But, to me, that looks like two blue cords. So I do mine differently, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. And I dye the blue string myself. Aside from wearing the tzitzit and making your commitment, your dedication to Abba Father to obey all his commandments, and to wear these as something very sacred and very personal, it's between you and him, I feel that it's something you should do yourself. You should make your own tzitzit. If you can't for any reason, I'll have a link in the more info section below the video to a good friend of mine, Chuck, and he will make tzitzit for you in any style you want, including mine that I'm about to show you. But yeah, this is, very personal. I've not seen anyone else do it this way. I have 7 white strings that run down through the blue shamash, it's called. 7 for the number of completion and the number of wholeness that represents all of Yahweh's commandments. And then the blue string representing Yeshua, our Mashiach. He holds all things together. And the blue string wraps around the white strings, holds them all together. There's no knots. The strings are just running straight and true all the way through, just like the road to his kingdom. So that being said, if you want to make your own, here's how I go about it. First, I'm going to show you how I dye them, and then I'm going to show you how I tie them. Well, here's a package of the tzitzit as it comes from Israel. And this package is, of course, you can't read any of that unless you learn how to read Hebrew. Anyway, it comes packaged up like this, and there's a bunch of strings here, and for $4. You trust me when I tell you, you will not be able to find string like this anywhere else. I've looked, I spent days on the internet, going to fabric stores and sewing stores, and this is 100% wool, which I like because, the lamb. All you're going to find in a fabric shop in terms of wool would be yarn, and it's just, it doesn't have the firmness that this has. Now, when you open the package up, the strings are already cut, and 1, 2, 3, 4 makes one set, one tzitzit. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 3 and 4. So you wind up with 4 tzitziot. Now, when you unravel it, you'll find out that all the strings are the same length, except there are 4 here that are a whole bunch longer. These 4 from here down are longer because these are meant to be the shamash. There's 4 of them, 1 for each tzitzit, and that's the one that you do the wrapping with. Now I'm going to take these 4 and I'm going to dye them, and so I'll separate those and get ready to start the process. Okay, the first thing we want to do is take the strings that we're going to dye, and we're just going to put them in water and soak them. I'm going to soak these for, a good half an hour, maybe an hour. I don't know what that is. But just set them in this bowl. That's pretty warm water right there. Very warm water. And I'm just going to let them soak so they get good and wet, and that'll make them more conducive to receiving the dye. Now what I did was I purchased 4 packages of the tzitzit, and I took all the long strings out of the 4 packages and have them soaking in the warm water, and then the shorter strings from the 4th package I took out and I added it to the other 3 sets, because I want to make 3 sets of tzitziot. So you see the 3 sets there. Those are all the shorter strings. I'm going to, you can see Now you can see I have quite a few strings soaking in the bowl, and I'm only going to be using 3 of those after they're dyed, and I'll be attaching them to one from, well actually what am I saying, there's going to be 3 times 4, so there'll be 12 of those strings that are dyed that I'm going to be using, and I'll be adding it to a half string from each set. You'll see that as we go along, but I wanted to dye and have plenty of extra so that in the future if I want to make another set I should have enough of the techelet or the techelet, the blue strings, to make more. Okay, we're getting ready to start the dyeing process. I went out and picked up this baking pan because it was, it was like $4.50, and I figured, okay, by the way, this is the first time I'm doing all this. Here we have some dye, and it's Jacquard acid dye. When you're dyeing wool, you have to use an acid dye. Let me get up close. Number 622, I like that because it comes to 10, and that's the number of Abba Father. It's sapphire blue. I also am using some white distilled vinegar. I didn't notice that it was reduced with water to 5% acidity. Yeah, I hope that's okay. Anyway, I took a half a cup of that vinegar and I put it in a mason jar. And I have a spoon here. I'll be using it for stirring. This spoon means a lot to me. I've had this spoon since I was 4 years old, maybe 3. And don't ask me why, but I remember even as a child looking at that pattern. For some reason, I always said it reminded me of the color blue. So now let's also make a point that every step of this process is an act of worship. And I have prayed over all the strings, the ones that are soaking as well as the ones I have on the side. And I've prayed over my intentions, and I've talked to Abba every step of the way. Like I said, this is an act of worship, and this should be taken with real serious attitude. So I want to take, oh, I can't get the spoon in there. Well, maybe I can. I want to take about a half a teaspoon, and I'm going to put that into the vinegar I have here in the mason jar. I want to make sure that's mixed really well. In fact, I'm going to shake it up. Okay, I've shaken it up. It looks like I got a little dye there in the bowl. I'm going to take this water out, put it in the pan. I'm going to add my mixture of dye. Make sure that's all blended nicely. By the way, this is a good lesson right here about the Hebrew word kodesh, because that word is always translated as holy, and the Western mindset, when you say the word holy, most people think of a lot of weird things, like candles and statues of angels and stained glass windows. The word holy means dedicated, Now this spoon, pardon me, the word Kodesh means dedicated. This spoon is a Kodesh spoon because I will never use it for anything else other than dyeing my techelet. It is dedicated. It is Kodesh. Okay, I have this on, I don't know if you can see it, but I have it on a very low to medium fire. And I put everything in at, room temperature. And you want to stir this frequently. I want to get the water up to a simmer. And once it's simmering, then I'm going to stir frequently, keep it simmering for about a half an hour. Now we want to bring it up to a simmer gradually. You don't want to do it suddenly. That's why I have it on a low, medium-low fire. And want to bring it up to a simmer gradually. You can see it's steaming. And when I said my spoon is Kodesh because it's dedicated, I should have said it's dedicated to one thing. This is what Kodesh means. The Kodesh spirit of Yahweh. That's His spirit is dedicated to Him and to Him only. The Kodesh spirit won't even speak on His own. He only says to us what the Father says to say. That's total dedication to one thing only, and that's what Kodesh means. Okay, it's simmering. I guess you can see it there. And so we'll continue letting that go in the simmering stage. Whoops. Until, well, I'm going to give it another 20 minutes like this. Okay, that's been about 20 minutes, and I'm going to I turned the fire off. I'm going to set these over on the side and let that cool down for about 10 minutes. Okay, that's been sitting for a bit. Now I'm going to pour out the dye. And run cool water. And get the dye out of the string. I think I probably used a lot more dye than I needed to, because there's an 800 number on the bottle of dye, and that's where I called and talked to this really sweet woman. She told me, how much vinegar to use and for the amount of wool string that I was going to dye, and she told me, if you use the right amount when you're after a half an hour of simmering, you won't see any dye in the water. She told me to use half a teaspoon, and I probably really used a whole teaspoon. That's pretty dark. It doesn't seem to be shedding any more dye. So now I'll take it out of the water and come up with a system for drying it. Yep, there's no dye coming out. Okay, I've taken the string out. I'm squeezing it in a paper towel, and you'll see no dye. So now all we have to do is separate these strings nicely and hang them up to dry. Well, if you've ever had to untangle Christmas tree lights, which I don't do anymore, I haven't done it for many years, I'm happy to say, but when you get done dyeing your string, you're going to, if you're gentle, look at that one. If you're gentle, you can untangle them fairly easily, but they did get twisted up in the stirring process. However, I have to say they're unraveling rather well. Look at that. Nonetheless, you can see with a lot of gentle jiggling. Look at this group. Isn't that funny? That's a group of 4. It's like the I put the groups of 4 in, and they've kind of hugged each other and stayed together, because I've got this one, I've got this one here, and that's there's 4 strings there, and then I've got this third one here, and now the last one. So they pretty much stayed together. Isn't that interesting? Okay, I think the best way of unraveling these, I started down at the bottom. Well, let me start at the other side and I'll show you. You can see that these are all twisted together. So get up about 6 inches from the bottom. Get your fingers into an opening, and then go wide and pull. And then you just have to work your way up. Go up a couple of inches, even if you just get 1 string here, enough to get 2 fingers in, and then go wide with your fingers, and they come apart easier than just trying to run straight down. And you can only go a little bit at a time, otherwise, you know, they'll twist up again. So here I've got 4 well separated, about 12 inches. Come up another 4 to 6 inches, get in the middle, pull them apart horizontally, and might want to do that again. I got 2 and 2, so I'm going to grab each of those 2 and unravel them. This takes a little bit of time. Now once you've got them mostly unraveled, you can grab 1 string and just pull it out of the group. Well, there's my chrome hanger on my dining room light, and I've got all the strings hanging, and I'll let I think about an hour and they'll probably all be dry. Okay, now just to recap, I purchased 4 packages of the Tzitzit, and took all the long strings from each of the 4 packages out and dyed them, and then so I had 4 packages of the white strings, which are shorter. I took the short white strings from the 4th package, I took and divided them up into the other 3 packages. So I wound up with 4 white strings for each tzitzit. So I had 3 sets with 16 of the white strings, so I could do 4 tzitzit or tzitziot, and then I had the long blue strings to add to them. So we start off taking one set, and we want to find the half point and then make one side longer by about 6 inches. Okay, and then I have this little vise set up here, which I can lock down onto the table, and I have a large paper clip clamped in. So with my thumb at the center point of the strings and the longer side towards me, I get it into the middle of this large paper clip, and that holds it down. Now I want to do some braiding, and most people know how to do a simple braid with 3 strings or strands of hair or whatever, but here we have 4, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty much the same as doing a braid with 3, where you just go over and under kind of a thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to get 2 to the right and 2 to the left, and you're going to take the top one on the right and bring it over to the bottom side of the left. Then you take the top one on the left and bring that one over to the bottom of the right. And that's the pattern. Top right over to the bottom left, top left over to the bottom right. There's 2 sets. One last time. Top right over to the bottom left, and then the top left over to the bottom right. And that makes what's called the diamond braid. There are 3 braids right there. Okay, so you keep going, and I did 30, and when I say 30 I mean top right to the bottom left, top left to the bottom right as 1. So there's 30, and that gives you a loop that I think is big enough. And I like 30 because it's the age that Yeshua started his ministry. It's a good enough excuse. And now I'm going to put a little paper clip right there just to hold it in place. Now there are, you know, most people, they just leave the 4 strings there and tie a knot. I don't like tying knots. I don't know. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of ways of doing this. The wraps, you know, the Ashkenazi, the Sephardic, the Hasidic, they all do the wraps in a numerical sequence. They'll do, with the blue string, which we'll be getting to next, they'll do 7 wraps, and then they'll tie some knots, and then they'll do 8 wraps and tie some knots, and then they do 11 wraps, tie some knots, and then 13 wraps, and you know, they have the reasons for doing it that way. They have a series of prayers that they reiterate every time they do it, and so on. The way I like to do it is a wrap of 10 for the letter Yod. In Hebrew, it's not called a letter, it's called an ot. An ot means a sign or a mark. Anyway, I like to do a wrap of 10 for the letter Yod, and then no knots, little space. I'll do a wrap of 5 for the letter Hey, no knots, a space, a wrap of 6 for the letter Vav, no knots, a space, a wrap of 5 for the letter Hey again, that's Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, the Father's name, Yahweh. Then I do a bigger space, and I do a final wrap of 13 to represent the word Yechad, so that it all says Yahweh Yechad. And I always look at them and say, Yahweh my Elohim, Yahweh Yechad. So now, this is going to be the loop. It's braided. I like it that way. It holds up better. It's good to use for, the blue jean seat. Put this through your belt loops. And now what I want to do is add the blue string to one of these 4. And the blue is called the Shamash. And the color is Techelet. That means blue. And the Shamash represents Yeshua, the Mashiach. And the Shamash it does all the wrapping. It holds everything together, just like Yeshua holds all things in the universe together. So I'm going to take one of these strings, and I'm just going to tie just with a simple knot. It's the only knot that I do. And, the word says to fix a string of techelet to the tassel. So that's what I'm doing. And the only way I've known to do it so far is with one simple knot. I get that up real close to the paper clip, and then this wool is kind of stretchy, so it really does nice and tight. But let me get up in there close, and then I just want to pull this real tight. Hopefully I can do it where you can see it. There, snug and tight. Bring that blue string over here, and then we can just cut that extra that's on here off. Pretty close. Oops, I forgot to show you the removal of the white string, which you just saw me tie the blue string to. I tied the blue string to one of the white strings, and then I trimmed off the little leftover end of the blue string. And what you didn't see me do was right under that knot, I cut the white string, so that we wind up now with just 7 white strings running down, which will be wrapped inside the blue shamash. Now, take the paper clip off here, release, grab this one close and tight. We don't want it to unravel, and just pinch it together like so. Get the blue string so that it's separate from the others. Let me turn this that way. The blue string is on the right. And we're going to do the first wrap of 10. And we want to go from right to left, the way you read Hebrew. And also the way the Messiah comes, like lightning from the east unto the west. That would be from the right to the left. So I want to come above this this knot, and we're going to go around the needle. I've got this needle, has a large eye. You'll see what the purpose of this is. I'm going to wrap the needle and the white threads together. So we come around once, twice, and then we snug. Give the second one the snug. That's 2 wraps. And then we go, wait a minute, I got a little too much extra here. 1 and 2 and snug. There's 2, 3, 4, and you don't pull too tight, but snug. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then, this is important, we want to come underneath the needle on that bottom wrap. And then we're going to grab the end of the blue string and we're going to put it through the eye of the needle. Get that in there. Probably come through a couple of inches, and then grab the needle. Make sure this string is underneath it and to the left, and pull through. Bring it through. It releases. Put the needle down, and let's see. We want to make sure that what's coming out is over on the right, and then everything else is over to the left, and pull all the way through. Get it up here, pull it snug. Now the reason that we went under the needle is so that when the string comes out the bottom, it's actually holding the wrap together and keeping it from unraveling. So there's the first wrap of 10 for the letter Yod. And I just grab my needle and make sure all these strings are nice and straight, not raveled up. Get the blue string. We're going to come down about a half of an inch, put our needle back in place, and we're going to start the second wrap. Come around once, come around the second time, make sure that second one's below the first one. Get our spacing where we want it, about a half an inch, and then snug. Now this is going to be, I've got 2 wraps there, we're going to do 5. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, under the needle, keep that to the left, get the end of the string. I usually loop the end and then put it through the eye. It's a little easier with that loop. Bring it through just a couple of inches and make sure this string, every part of it there, stays to the left, and pull it through. Snug it up. Touch things up, snug it again, and I don't know if you can see that one string right there. It's got a little bit of a loop in it. You can find that and snug it down. Figure out which one it is here. There it is. And then snug the blue string, and there's the second wrap. You can always tweak these things up. Okay, we got 2 wraps. Yod, Hey. Get the blue string to the right. Again, make sure these aren't tangled. I like them running straight. Straight and true. And then we cut half of one of these off, attach the blue, so we have 7 white strings and 1 blue string. Now, that's unorthodox. Nobody I know does it that way but me. And I just like it that way because 7 is a number of completion and wholeness, and it represents Abba Father's commandments, which is what the Tzitzit is all about. And so we go 1 and 2, and then get our position where we want it and snug. That looks about right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then under the needle. Grab the other end. So 7, represents wholeness and completion. And the white 7 strings are Yahweh's commandments, and they are held together by the Messiah who holds all things together. Bring it through the eye. Bring everything over to the left side. Pull the needle through. Set it down. And pull the blue shamash down. Snug it. Check everything. Snug it up again. Snug it good and tight. And there's the third wrap of 6. Yod, Hey, Vav. Now we're going to do the Hey again, which is 5. Get our needle in place. Get the blue. Wrap it around once. Twice. Get our positioning and snug the second wrap. Alright, 2, 3, 4, 5, and under the needle. Get the end of the blue string, make a little bit of a loop, get it through the eye, and where are we? Get everything over to the left and pull the needle through. Snug up, oops. Get that blue string happening. Pull it through and snug it. Check everything. Get that up there. You can almost see here how that... Oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Looks like that wrap is funny. No. Yes? What's going on? There's the wrap. Snug it. It's good. Just gotta tighten things up. Get them in position. Pull that thing snug again. And there you go. We have Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Now we're going to go for the final one of 13. And for this, I like to go a little further down from Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Put the needle in place. Gets a little tricky when you're down this far because everything's hanging over. But get one loop. Get 2. Line things up. Like come a little lower. And then snug the second one. There's 2. 3. Make sure you don't go too tight on this one because there's 13 wraps and you'll have a hard time pulling the needle through. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 under the needle. Everything's over. It's hard doing this with the camera between me and my hands. Get the end of the blue string, a little bit of a loop, put it through the eye, get everything over on the left, and pull the needle through. And the blue string, snug it up, check everything on the alignment, give another snug, and we've got some strings that are sticking out over here. We've got to find those by holding everything straight, and whoop, that ain't it. Tugging on each string, there you go, till you see the one that's looped. You just snug it up. Let's get these one at a time out of the way. Oh, there it is. That's the one. Now they're nice and straight. And you've got Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, Yahweh, Yechad. Now, we're done except for trimming. So, we want to come down, get all the strings so they're nice and straight. I'm going to cut nice and straight about this much off. And then the blue string, I get to be 2 or 3 inches longer. And there you go. There's one tzitzit. Yod He Vav He, Yahweh, Yechad. And so, there you have it. The tzitzit. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're encouraged to make your own. Praying at every step of the way. Laying hands on them and thanking Abba for anointing them and for causing you to be obedient and true to Him. Shalom Aleichem.